As long as Americans continue to die because of gun violence each day, each year, these docs will continue to talk. Please join us now at When Docs Talk for part 2 of our special interview with Miss Cheryl Lumpkins, a mother's story of how she lost her son way too soon to gun violence. This must end. Let's talk to Miss Cheryl once again. When docs talk, when docs talk, when docs talk, when docs talk.
I felt something was going to happen in my spirit, you know. But today it's out of control. I mean, come on now, wake up, people! It's just out of control.
It is. It is.
I mean,
do you think that there are things that should be done and could be done that are deliberately not being done?
Yes.
Tell me about it.
I feel that they should put a halt on some of these things that they're trying to pass with guns. That's the number one point. Reach out and start helping people that has been involved in gun violence instead of spreading. I think it's all about revenue, you know, politics. How are you going to put more guns on the street in Georgia and you sending guns over across the water? Why can't you help your people here in the United States?
Yeah.
It's too much politics going on right now with that.
It is. It's a lot of politics, and that's the main thing. And I think what I often hear is a lot of people don't think that there should be any sort of gun safety or gun laws because they feel like it's a slippery slope and that their guns are going to be taken away. And so I think that there's so much back and forth fighting that very little is getting done in order to make these streets safer for anybody. And I say streets, it used to be the streets that you had to make safer. Now it's anywhere. I mean, literally, I feel that we are in a society where you can die from gun violence anywhere. There's no safe place.
And it's scary it's scary having kids knowing that this is the world we have developed and are giving to them.
Right.
It's very scary. I'm scared for all young people, my grandkids. Even for myself, I'm still very cautious, watching over my back. Even though I'm in a new state, when I go home, I'll be very paranoid. I'm real paranoid. It just left me like that, you know.
Yeah. Do you feel comfortable around guns? Like, do you own a gun?
No, I don't.
Do you feel comfortable around guns?
I feel comfortable around a gun as long as I know it's stored properly and it's not being misused. Because if I had a gun and I had to use it, somebody come in my home, yes, I'm going to use it. If I had to protect myself or my family. It's just like in Missouri, like New Year's Eve, 4th of July, you think you was in Vietnam somewhere.
Wow.
Them guns come out. You don't know firecrackers from guns.
Right.
and it's live. It's really live. But yes, gun violence is a very, very serious issue right now. It's just too much going on with guns.
Absolutely. And it actually got worse during the pandemic. So
Yeah.
they've done studies about it. And during the pandemic, there's been more shootings, more gun violence. Looking at CDC data from the past, say, 5 years, is an estimate that almost 120,000 people in this country are shot every year.
Mm-hmm.
More than 40,000 people die from gun violence.
Mm-hmm.
I think we already talked about earlier in the show that children and teens, so these are people ages 1 through 17, every year almost 8,000 are shot. Almost 2,000 die from gun violence. And we're talking about every day now. 22 kids at least
Mm-hmm.
are shot in this country. Kids, 17 and below.
And that's what it really touched my heart. Seeing so many baby and kids getting killed. It's more children and kids getting killed than adults. And that don't make no sense.
And then I was just looking up something. In 2021, it was the second highest year for gun sales since 2000.
Wow.
And that 20 million guns were sold last year, based upon Forbes.
Yep. So people are still buying them. And you know what? I don't even know if I have a problem with that, to be honest with you. I don't know if I have a problem with people buying guns. I have a problem with the fact that we don't know who's buying them. There's no sort of regulation. And I have a problem with the fact that some of those people that you mentioned that bought guns in 2021 should absolutely not have
guns
at all. That's the issue. And I think it gets, all confounded when you start to talk about your issues with that. They say, oh, you don't like guns. You want guns taken away. That's not the case. I just think we need to be careful. But you know what I really think? I really think we need to stop having this conversation again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's going nowhere.
And then another thing you have to look at too, you have individuals will go get you a gun because the other individual know they can't go get them.
Yes.
And that's a problem too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Joe may be a felon, but Earl, he's not a felon.
Right.
And he could go get all the guns you want.
Mm-hmm.
Earl got the hookup.
Yeah.
Earl got the hookup.
Earl got the hookup.
Money talks.
Mm-hmm.
These days you hear about people, not necessarily felons, people who might have even passed a background check, but are going in and taking out multiple people. And then the question of mental health comes into play. Now, I know in the case of Ricky's murder, it wasn't, you said it was a gangster. But what about this whole notion of mental health and that being the main problem, not guns, but people who are not well and a system that's not treating people who are going to use guns in a dangerous way because they're mentally ill? What's your answer to that?
That's the big issue. It's a lot of mental health people that shouldn't have guns. And like right now, they're not getting the treatment, the support. So they're just taking it in their own hands and doing what, they may not want to do it and their mind not be right. But yeah, it's a lot of mental health people that shouldn't have guns. And mental health plays an important part, I think, because of gun violence too. Now, sure, when little Ricky got killed, I wanted to shoot up some stuff. I ain't gonna lie. I was angry. We have the 5 stages of grieving. I went through all of that. I was angry, depressed. I was minimalizing with myself,
Of course.
And I found out that when I was seeing Dr. John Lane, he's a grieving psychiatrist. He told me, he said, Miss Shore, you ain't going to be right for 5 years. And sure enough, it took every bit of the 5 years for me to learn how to deal and live with it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I still go through them five grieving stages, but I know how to deal with it. I would find myself going to the cemetery every day,
Mm,
bust out crying. I couldn't hold a job for a year and a half.
yeah. Well,
I couldn't. I just couldn't. Went back to heavy drinking.
Mm.
Never, never, never ever smoked a cigarette until that boy got killed.
Wow.
Never.
Mm.
But I had to find some way how to cope
cool.
Right.
and
Mhm,
not go back to what I used to do.
mhm.
That's right.
And
That's
I'm not
right.
ashamed, to tell people that, but yeah, it was hard.
Mhm.
I have
It's
no doubt
hard.
that it's hard. And I think that you are so strong
Oh
because
yeah.
in the capacity that I've interacted with you, you always bring a smile to people's faces. You are so strong and you do not look like what you've been through.
Yes.
And so I want to ask you to pour that same strength into others. If you were talking to another mother or father or family member in your shoes who's lost somebody to gun violence, what would you tell them today?
First, you're going to have to be prayerful and stay strong. You may not like what happened to your child, your cousin, your brother, but you have to keep your faith in the Lord. You got to endure, persevere. You're going to have to reach out and have support. And most of all, be there for the next guy that happens. That's what really pulled me back together. When I started going out, fellowshipping with other individuals, I was like, well, I thought I was the only one that felt like this. But when you see other families and friends, because this thing right here affects everybody.
Mhm,
It affects your family, your
mhm.
friends. I mean, I praise God for my church family, my family. My mother was like in her late 80s. She was declining in health. My oldest son, he was locked up, and I done lost one to gun violence. So, all I had was, my daughter and my son. But even though I had Ricky, because the little Ricky was Big Ricky's only child.
Mm.
Okay.
So I lost little Ricky November the 19th, 2011. I lost his dad January the 18th, 2012, a day
Oh,
before my birthday.
Oh my goodness.
just a year later.
He when I had to look over he was declining, even though I had two other children. But
Yeah.
you can't tell me can't nobody die from a broken heart because
Oh,
I seen it. I
Absolutely.
seen it.
100%. I actually, 100% believe that. As a physician, somebody who believes in science, I still think that grief takes a form. It's almost like a cancer in your body.
Yes,
Mhm,
it
And
took
I
it
know
out.
so many people who have lost others,
mhm,
and soon thereafter they follow.
mhm.
Two
So
months.
I believe you.
It was November and January, and he had planned a big birthday party for me. And I never forget the day before he died, he was like thanking me for everything that I had done. I know we've been through so much, with little Ricky. Here I'm thinking my mother was going to go because my son was loyal to his grandmother, my mother. And I never forget, I got up that one morning on the 18th. I went to use the restroom, and he just kept staring at me. I could see him from the living room, from the bedroom, sitting on the bed. He was staring at me. And he was like, "Thank you, sure, I love you." So I went to the restroom and I said, "Well, baby, I'm going to lay here." I never forget, I was watching the Tyler Perry movie. I promise y'all. I went to sleep for 30 minutes and I woke up and his dad was gone. Gone. And I said, oh, to the hell to the no. No, you didn't. So that means I had to bury 2 people within 2 months.
Mm-mm.
I had to grieve him and his dad. I have him and his father buried on top of each other next to my parents and my older brother. I'm telling y'all. I'm telling you. I know it is nothing but God's grace that kept me mentally insane. I probably could have got a check. People like, you should have got you a check. No. I can't even explain it. It's something I only feel in my heart. It's like when you have a pizza, you got a whole pizza and you take 2 slices out and it's gone.
Yeah.
And you can't put that pizza back in there together. That's how I was feeling. That's how I feel. Now, don't get me wrong. I do, like I go through these 5 stages. You know, I tell people like, I'm having a Ricky day. I said, so it's not you, it's me. I let people know it's not you, it's me. Because, you know, I'll be thinking, but this year, by being 10 or 11 years, it tore me up.
I'm sure.
He would have been 26. What would my child been doing? Would he have been married? Would I have grandchildren?
Yeah.
Would he have been through college? You know.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what he would have been doing.
Of course.
And thank you. The way you just described all of that from the standpoint of really that one bullet or those bullets, but that one night and that gun and how it impacted so many different lives.
Yes.
You know, because I think that's the thing too, even, you know, if you hear it on the news, maybe okay, this person died, but you really don't think about from the standpoint, mom, dad, but just all of that collateral damage.
Yes.
It was just like me being a newborn baby. I had to learn how to live and cope with life all over. It was like I was being born again, but I had to learn how to cope with it in a different way.
Yeah.
Strong isn't even a good enough word to
really
describe what you are, Miss Cheryl. It's really not.
For real. Sonia, you were talking about all the lives that it affects, but all the generations after too.
Yes.
Like, you know, when you think about people who lose a parent, you know, young people who are in their 20s who have kids and then their grandkids. And so, I mean, their kids, it's just whole generations that are completely shaped and changed by these incidences of gun violence.
Exactly.
And it makes a difference when you used to older adults, you losing them. But Ricky,
right?
I think Ricky, I had 3 other cousins. They was pretty young, but Ricky was the youngest. Ricky was the youngest.
Yeah, and I just think what the world lost. You know, we missed out on such somebody that sounds so beautiful.
Yes.
You know.
And then I think about I know that God allowed me to have him 17 years. I was mad at God too. I said, and my pastor, Reverend Faith White, had to tell me, he said, he was really God's child. He allowed you to have him 17 years. And I had to think about that. And so that's why we need to be so ever careful, because when God allows us to have children, grandchildren, husbands, we should honor that each and every day, because you never know. That's one appointment. I'm telling you, that's one appointment you can't say you're not going to. Like they call you guys up and say, we ain't coming to that appointment. You're not going. That's one appointment you can't close that door.
That's right. That's right. What one wish do you have? If you can make one wish to make things better in terms of gun violence, gun culture in this country, what would it be?
Well, that's a good one. I believe my wish would be that gun violence would cease. We should humble ourselves toward each other, show more unity and love. And I don't care what nobody say. Do not kill, because you're going to be judged about that one. That you may think you've gotten away with it, but you haven't, because our Heavenly Father knows, and you're going to answer to Him. You sure are. Every little thing that we do on this earth that's not godly, we're going to answer to it. And that's one thing. And it's like, for us being out here, I think we should be show more discipleship. This is the time when we need to go out and show the love, witness to people, bring people, back in that, need help, well, I have an issue, it's not drugs and alcohol, guns, mental health. All of this stuff needs to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
And until it's not being addressed, we're gonna have issues like this. But as far as citizens, we need to be disciples. We need to be witnessing daily, sharing a story. I hate to turn the news on. When I get off at 4, I love going home watching the news. First thing, somebody got killed.
Right.
Somebody got stabbed. My daughter does not watch the news.
I don't blame her. I'm sure it's traumatizing for you every time you turn on the news and hear a story like this.
And then, especially with the gun violence, all I can do is say, Lord have mercy. I know how that parent is feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But gun violence is very, very serious. It's very dangerous today. It's out of control.
Yes.
And we can protect ourselves, but to me, gun violence, when you're just going randomly shooting people, to me, that's assassination. Because you don't have a heart for another individual or person.
That's right. That's right. Well, Ms. Cheryl, I really want to thank you for sharing your story. You're so kind to really let us know how you've been, what you've been through, to give advice to other parents and families. I always get worried, when we have somebody come on and has such a strong and powerful and sad story, if it's going to be okay. And you told me from the beginning, you said, ask me anything. And you really have been so honest and so open with us and really let us share, this experience that you've had. And I'm hoping and believing that it will touch somebody else who's been through the same things. But even more than that, I'm hoping that there are less of you mothers that have to go through this. This has to end.
Yes.
And I just want to thank you again. And I hope you'll be back another time on our show.
Sure, anytime. And thank you, ladies, for letting me be a part of your show. And we got to stop the gun violence because, as Mothers in Charge says, we will always remember them.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Okay.
And we'll see you next time on When Docs Talks. Thanks, everyone, for watching.
Thank you.
When Docs Talk, when Docs Talk.